It's a lot. Anyways, we start at 10 a.m. with a So You Want to Teach class, followed by a satin stitch applique, then past, present, and future of roleplay in Bell, peerage council at 1 o'clock, flirting and consent, all guild meeting at 3 o'clock, all you need to know about armor at 4 o'clock, 1v1 Spirit vs. Sword and Board at 5 o'clock, battle photos at 6 o'clock, beginner embroidery at 7 o'clock, and our last class for Chaosers at home is historical battle comparisons at 8 o'clock. So many classes. Yay! Oh my god, 2 minutes left.
So I have been fighting with my phone for like the last 2-3 hours trying to get my video that I made finishing my class for the Gandalf satchel to load, and it's not doing it, and I'm so sad.
So sad.
That's not fair.
My kitty cat. She's saying I haven't given her love today. One minute. I still need to prep for my applique class tomorrow. Alright, it is 8 o'clock, Brother Maynard. Are you ready for us?
Just about. I'm trying to get a good camera angle here, but it's not really forthcoming.
No, it's challenging. I have lived that battle. I find if you can get it up high so it looks down, it makes life easier.
That would be the ideal case. Let me see if I can find it.
Camera angles are super, super tricky.
Thank you for your patience. All right, we'll try that.
Rim
How am I
saying
doing?
hi to you.
Sorry?
Rim is saying hello.
Hi, Kat. All right, so...
Wait. Before you begin, I need to start the recording and do the spiel.
Okay.
If my computer, there we go. Wait. This is Apprentice Brother Maynard's class, Basic Bread Without an Oven. It has pockets. This class is scheduled until 9 o'clock. If it goes long, you can find him in the Chaos Wars Discord, where he will help answer your questions. Go ahead, Brother Maynard.
Hi, everybody. This is a basic bread class. It's kind of been on people's minds, I think, since the beginning of our current situation, which has prevented us from in-person Chaos Wars. But I hope that you find it interesting, and maybe you'll try cooking some of this bread if you've been intimidated to start baking at home. Flatbreads are old as heck, like some of the first real cooked foods after just meat by the fire or dried in strips. We've got essentially the ability to grow grain, which is really great. And you can turn it into kind of a mushy, gluey soup, which is kind of tough, right? Leda, am I the main screen or are you still pinned? Hello?
You're good. The screen that's pinned is to Lynn, and he pins it on his end for the Twitch.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so to really take advantage of the cereal grains in ways other than making like a basic porridge or soup is to grind it into flour, and then you can make your soups and stews much smoother that way, but you can also do the cool things like make noodles and bread. Bread is really ancient, like prehistoric, we're talking here. All you really need is flour, salt, water, and yeast. Without yeast, you kind of get some very tough, hard to eat cakes, which are edible and more nutritious for you than just eating the raw grain. But leavening really makes bread something that you want to eat, and it's comfortable. So we're going to make a basic bread. Uh, there's a link on the page that Leda created with a handout for the recipes that I'll be using today for this basic pita bread. What's nice about pita is that you don't actually even need an oven to make it. Once you get the dough together, you let it rest and it rises, which is beautiful. You cut it up into pieces, you shape it, and then you can just cook it on anything that gets really hot and it's kind of flat. I've done it in a skillet, I've done it on a griddle, and I've even done it outdoors on a charcoal grill. So it's pretty interesting how versatile it is, and it lends itself to a lot of different methods with very basic infrastructure. So it's actually kind of cool to see how many different cultures have developed a flatbread as a result. You've got tortillas all over the place. You've got, let's see, you've got jianbing in China. You've got various forms of crepe made with non-wheat flours in other cultures. You have naan, roti, chapatis, all kinds of exciting breads from the Indian subcontinent. Basically, anywhere that you can grow a cereal grain, you find flatbreads because they're just so easy. So the first thing that you need to do to get this bread going is gather your ingredients. We've got flour, we've got water that's slightly warm just from the tap, a little bit of sugar just to get the yeast jump started. The yeast source, in this case, I'm going to be using some commercial yeast, but you could also do this with a sourdough starter, and if we have time, we can get into that too. Let's see, got salt. If you don't have salt, bread just isn't quite bread. It kind of stays cakey and flat. It's really hard to make something enjoyable without salt. So don't forget salt. This is non-iodized, or sorry, it's fine sea salt. I chose something that doesn't have the iodine in it, just because you can find that it'll inhibit some of your yeast action if you're using something really sensitive like sourdough. But a commercial yeast will probably do fine with iodized salt if that's all you can find. We also have a little bit of oil. So this makes bread just a little bit more satisfying. In all these cultures, you usually have some sort of fat that you're cooking the bread in at the very least, but you're mixing it in here too to keep the bread a little bit more pliable, and that will help us make a pocket. It's certainly not essential that your bread have a pocket. It's really cool when it does work out. So, you know, we're gonna cross our fingers and hope here. But the nice thing about this recipe is that even if you know, your heat isn't quite perfect, if your yeast isn't super active, you can make something nice and edible. It'll just be a nice flatbread, which is an excellent base for something like a toaster oven pizza, or just to eat kind of like a puffy shell taco or something. All right, so step one, we've got to wake up our yeast. Yeast that's sold commercially is kind of in a state of hibernation, like Master Chief or something. You know, he's just waiting in reserve, ready to go, and really energetic when he does get going. But he is a little dehydrated, so add that to a large bowl with a large 1 cup of warm water. This is something that you would feel comfortable taking a bath in. It shouldn't be really, really hot because it turns out you can kill Master Chief. We're also going to use a little bit of sugar just to get this thing going. This is just a teaspoon of white sugar. You could use a teaspoon of a different sugar if you like. It really needs to be a real sugar though. You shouldn't use a sugar substitute because the yeast won't be able to metabolize it as well. I often use honey. Honey is a great natural sweetener that would have been available in Gilead if you're interested in authenticity. Just mix that all together and let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. I've already kind of cut ahead and this one's ready to go. The next step is we're going to add the oil right to the bowl. Okay. And we're gonna add 2 cups of flour. This is a mixture of all-purpose flour and whole wheat flour. You can really use almost any flour once you get accustomed to this recipe. But having more protein tends to help than less. So if you can find bread flour, go ahead and use that. It'll just make your bread just a little bit more toothsome and resilient when it comes to making pie. All right. This is an easy recipe. If you don't really love getting your hands messy, you can use a rubber spatula at this point to incorporate the ingredients. Just kind of give it a gentle stir. And what we're looking for is to get rid of any dry spots. So kind of keep stirring until you've got all the flour incorporated, like so. And it's not going to be completely even just yet. It's going to take a little bit of working. All right. So this is kind of where my dough's at. It's really shaggy. It's very sticky and wet, and some parts are a little bit dry. But that's okay because the next step is we're going to get our hands messy. The amount of flour you have to add here is going to depend on things like the humidity with where you're cooking, how moist your flour is, how recently milled it was, and to a certain extent, how finely it's ground. Finer flours can absorb water a lot more readily and hydrate faster. When you get into more maybe rustic flours that are like coarse whole grains and things, you may find that it takes longer for them to kind of bloom. The way that you can kind of cheat this a little bit though is you can use slightly warmer water. I wouldn't take it very hot because again, you got to think about your yeast. You don't want to be killing the yeast off. So a 1/4 cup at a time, we're going to add a little bit of extra flour, and then we're going to work this with our hands, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so let's see, my bowl in focus. All right, so to incorporate the flour, just kind of get it all over the bowl, like that, and then press. You're just going to kind of keep moving around the lump of dough. You can rotate the bowl instead if you like, and you're going to try and massage that flour into the dough. Sorry for shaky cam. That's all I got at the moment. And mixing in this extra flour shouldn't take too very long. It's good to work either at a kitchen counter or even better, a dining table. Dining tables tend to be a little bit lower, and you can really get your shoulder over top of your dough. So we're just going to work that a little bit till it incorporates. All right. Any questions so far? Go ahead and put them in chat or ask them over voice. Sir Anastasia asked why I look so pretty. I just listened to great peerage talk from Antoinette and Oroku, and I thought to myself, I've got to get dressed up for my class. It's the way my mentor would have wanted it, who, if you don't know, is Sir Ram. All right. So with one hand, I'm pressing down on the dough, grabbing a little piece of it, folding it back on itself, and then pushing down again. With the other hand, I'm turning the bowl so that I pull on a different piece of the dough as I work around. Okay. All right, and this is your finished dough. It's pretty simple. It should be smoother than it started. It's not going to be 100% smooth just because it hasn't had a chance to rest and proof yet. Proofing is just kind of like if you listen to Master Sven's class, where the yeast get to work and start eating the sugar and turning it into gas and alcohol and other products that give your bread flavor. You'll know it's done when it feels a little bit like fresh Play-Doh. At this point, it should be very soft and it'll stick a little bit to the side of the bowl. You'll notice that also the sides of the bowl have become clean. There's actually a couple of interesting cooking terms for this, which I can't recall at the moment, but there's a specific Chinese phrase for essentially cleans the bowl when you know that your doughs are ready. Anyway, so it'll stick to the side of the bowl. It's smooth, could be smoother, but for this basic bread, it actually doesn't matter that much. Next step is we're going to lightly oil the bowl. So just a couple drops of oil, probably whatever is left over in your measuring spoon is enough. And you'll rub the dough in it, lightly coating the ball and the bottom of the bowl. And we'll just cover this with a wet tea towel. Leave it in a warm spot for about 2 hours, and you'll be ready for the next step. Thanks to the magic of TV, we're ready for the next step. You can see that the dough is relaxed quite a bit. This is actually a half portion of that dough because I've already shaped some of it, but the next part that we're going to get to is shaping. So take your dough out of the bowl, kind of loosely form it into a log if you can. And then just using a sharp knife on a cutting board, kind of divide it into 3 pieces, 6 if you have a full batch. That'll give you approximately 6-inch pita breads. If you like larger breads and you've done this a couple times, you can split it into 4 approximately 9-inch diameter pitas. But we'll be doing the smaller ones today since you may have some questions as I fry them up. So now that you've got your ball of dough, you've got to play with it a little bit and shape it. So start by kind of flattening it out, and then you'll fold it up, sort of like a flower petal, or a flower with its petals. So it's all kind of gathered on the top here, okay? The top face in the palm of your hand. And then with the other hand, as if you were kind of holding a small teacup upside down, you're going to roll the dough around. And what this does is it kind of seals up the bottom of the ball, makes it nice, smooth, and even, like that, okay? And then you're gonna place this on a nice flat surface that you've lightly dusted in flour. So let's do that over here. Repeat with the remaining balls of dough. So again, flatten it out, bring all the edges of your flattened piece of dough into the center. Okay. Put the side that you've pulled all the edges to in your hand and roll. It's a little bit awkward, but yeah. Okay. And last one. This part is not as much about sealing a tiny little air bubble in the middle to start your pitas going, but rather getting the dough into a nice consistent shape with the strand of gluten that you formed by letting it proof running around the surface of the ball. That'll make a nice strong network that will hold on to all the steam that we're going to generate in the next step. So in an ideal world, we would let the balls of dough rest for about 30 minutes. I've got a couple that I did earlier, but we'll get back to these three in just a second. Any questions that I've made up so far, or is everybody still doing okay? All right. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to try and switch you guys around so you can actually, I'll roll out a couple of pitas. This next part's not too bad. All we're going to do is take a little flour, dust our work surface, okay? And we'll take a rested dough ball and rolling pin, and we'll flatten it